Hello, everyone. I'm Pariksith Singh, MD, at our studio in Spring Hill, and I have the distinct pleasure to have one of my esteemed friends, one of the best teachers of integral education across the globe, and a true Vedanti in the original tradition and original sense of the term. And today we would like to talk about his new book, which is This is Sanatan Dharma, The Quest for Truth. And we have a lot of questions. Of course, I've read it. And even before reading it, I had a lot of questions. And after reading it, I think all my confusion has been enhanced significantly, which means I paid attention to what you said. So let us go right to the critical understanding. So let me give you my understanding. Sanatan Dharma talks about that one reality that is all of existence. The universe is one reality. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes.
And we are an intimate part of that reality. We are that reality.
We are that reality.
We are that reality. But then that opens a lot of questions, right? And obviously you have to help us navigate through those. Because the traditional understanding is we are that reality, but then everything is an illusion. Everything that we are doing. Right now, you are an illusion, and I am an illusion. Is that a correct understanding of the concept of illusionism or Maya?
Not really. That's, in fact, a very common misunderstanding. So illusion means what? The thing is not there,
Yes.
right? Or it seems to be there, but it's not really there. So I think for this we need to touch upon Maya first.
Yes.
And again, Maya is a very difficult concept to understand for most people. And in India, it's very common to confuse Maya with illusion. So when people say Mayavad in India, they often mean illusionism.
Yes.
But very interestingly, Maya comes from apa, to define. Let's take it this way, that there is this one infinite reality. Now, you are that one infinite reality. So am I, everyone and everything. So how does one perceive infinite reality? How does one become conscious of infinite reality? How does one interact with infinite reality? It's infinite. So, by that very word, infinite, we are talking about something that is there and is not there. It's there as the infinite, but it's not there as something defined, something finite. So, when in Sanatan Dharma we talk about a manifestation, what it really means is this infinite reality self-defines as the finite reality. It almost demarcates itself as a finite entity. And the moment it does that, the moment this infinite becomes, as it were, the finite, then consciousness becomes a possibility. Very simply stated, like if both of us are finite entities, then we are conscious of each other.
Yes.
I'm conscious of you as a finite entity. But if you were to be infinite,
Yes.
in consciousness, in matter, in energy, I wouldn't be able to, be conscious of you, perceive you,
Right.
interact with you, know you in any way. So the infinite by itself cannot be known. It's unknowable. Because the infinite cannot be known by anything else but the infinite. And being the infinite doesn't even need to know itself. But the moment the need to know arises, the moment the need to be conscious of something else arises, then that infinite has to portion itself off. I think that's a good phrase, portion itself off as a finite. And that is what Maya really means. Maya is that power that enables the infinite to portion itself off as the finite, and as many finites, infinite finites actually. So the world as we know it, this universe, this cosmic existence, is a portioning off of the infinite, is a self limitation of the infinite into the finite. The infinite limits itself as the finite and becomes knowable as cosmic existence. And then within cosmic existence, it becomes further knowable in more granular details as beings interacting with each other. And at an even more granular level of differentiation and definition, this infinite becomes Pariksith Singh and Partho having a conversation about the infinite.
So could you say the formless has become form, and that
Yes.
power is the Maya?
That power, Maya, makes it possible for the formless to assume a form and to retain the form, to conserve, to preserve that form for whatever time is necessary. Time itself is a delimitation of the infinite into the finite.
Right.
So all this happens because of the power of Maya. Without Maya, think about it. How can anything limit the infinite? How can anything take this infinite and push it into a finite form? No? Squeeze it into a finite form. However vast that finite form may be, and
Right.
the cosmos itself, compared to the infinite, is
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Minimal. Yeah.
so to compress this infinite into a cosmos needs power, and it's a divine power that is needed here, because any power short of the divine cannot do it.
Right. So the infinite using its own power. I'm using
Yes,
it as if
infinite
there
using
is
its
a
own power. You've done it right.
infinite using its own power to become finite, to
self-limit it.
limit,
Yes.
to manifest.
Yes. In order to manifest, the infinite limits itself by using its own infinite power, because nothing else can do it.
Right.
So that's Maya. So Mayavad is the philosophy, the darshan philosophy,
Right.
built on the understanding of Maya as the power responsible for manifesting, the manifesting power, the infinite manifesting itself as the finite
The
universe.
creative power, would you call it the creative power?
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Maya is the creative power. In fact, Maya is known as the creative power. So it creates. That's why there's often this misunderstanding, even amongst Sanatan Dharma thinkers, that this universe is a creation.
Right.
But it's actually not a creation, it's a manifestation of the infinite as the finite. But it uses the creative power of Maya. So that is the creativity of manifestation. So Mayavad is that which believes that this supreme infinite power that we call Brahma in Sanatan Dharma limits itself and manifests itself as this cosmos and the myriad cosmic forms in it. So it's not illusion at all in that sense.
So the illusion that it is an illusion is itself.
Yes, the illusion too.
be-
I mean, how has it become so popular, that everything is an illusion? It's because the illusion that you're talking about, perhaps, reflects our an incomplete, I wouldn't say incorrect, but an incomplete way of seeing. Now, if I see this as the infinite, which has become a finite form, and therefore I'm able to perceive it, to experience it, to know it, and identify it as a thing, as an object. But then I get so caught up in the finite form that I forget that this is the infinite, which has compressed itself into a finite form by its own infinite power. So when that happens, when I begin to see this finite form as just a finite form, and I think that's it, that's its reality, and completely forgetting that this is actually the infinite that I am beholding. It is the infinite that I am holding, both. So that perception that I am actually seeing a finite form, and this finite form is its own reality, and forgetting the fact that it's the infinite that is appearing to me as a finite form. That is the illusion. That is the. I still am not too happy with the word illusion. I would say that is the incorrect and wrong perception. Sorry, that is the incomplete perception.
So let's take a step back. The one who is having the incorrect perception,
Yes,
me,
incomplete perhaps, incomplete
perception, which is me, also is the finite, which is the infinite manifesting itself as the finite.
As the finite.
So the infinite manifests itself as finite, but the finite is incompletely perceiving the finite as finite.
The finite, that's right.
And that is the reason why we started calling it illusion.
That is, that's why most people started thinking of it as an illusion.
But so everything is the infinite. Everything is represented, and which goes with quantum physics, because every particle has that same, perhaps, that energy, matter energy across the universe. There are parts of the universe we don't know, like they call it dark energy and dark space, dark matter. And there may be more things that we don't know. This is just, but the mind that is registering it is also that those waves of that energy and the matter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's kind of a parallel. I wouldn't say one justifies the other. It's almost a parallel that we see in modern physics of the concept of oneness, would you say?
To an extent, and I wouldn't stretch the physics part too much, because physics studies only the manifest cosmos. But what we are talking about, the darshan of Sanatan Dharma, it studies is not the right word. It tries to understand and realize the infinite itself. And the primary difficulty in this whole process of understanding or knowing the infinite is that it's the finite consciousness, it's the finite mind that is trying to fathom the infinite, which is not possible. So our quest for knowledge in terms of Sanatan Dharma, our quest for knowledge of the infinite is never going to happen, because the finite will never realize the infinite. So that again is what leads to this concept of unreality or non-reality or illusion. But we are still talking about Maya as the power that makes knowledge possible only amongst finites.
So would you say that everything, all these finite forms are not an illusion? Are they, can we call them real? Are they real?
Yes. It's like, okay, let's take these two objects here.
Right.
So now the infinite, imagine the infinite assumes these two forms, these two finite forms, and the two can then interact.
Right.
So these are two finite formations of the infinite.
Yes.
Now, if the infinite is real, then all its formations are equally real.
Yes.
No, you cannot have a real infinite assuming an unreal form.
Right.
It's not logically possible. So every form that we are conscious of, and the forms that we ourselves are, at any point in space or time or consciousness, is the infinite. So it's as real as you can get.
But why don't we see it if it's real?
I don't understand that.
If all this is real,
Yes.
and we are real,
Yes.
why are we not seeing the infinite? Is there a reason?
Why are we not seeing the infinite? Yes, there is, because the infinite cannot be seen. When you say seeing,
By the very nature of things, we cannot.
yeah, because when you use the word seeing, you're talking
Right.
about perception, you're talking about awareness, you're talking about consciousness of an object, right?
Right,
I have to be conscious of an object for it to be perceivable,
right,
for it to be tangible.
right,
So, by definition, anything that's tangible, perceivable, measurable is finite. It's like mathematics.
right.
That which is measurable is perceivable
right,
and therefore experienceable.
right.
But the infinite is immeasurable. It is beyond measure.
So how can we know the
Because
infinite?
it is beyond measure, it is
Right.
beyond form.
Right,
It cannot, the moment you have a form, it's measurable. But the moment it's the immeasurable, it's the formless. The infinite, being the infinite, is formless. It's immeasurable.
okay.
It goes beyond all measure. So how are we to know it then?
How?
We can't.
So what
Knowing
is-
it is not possible.
Okay,
And there's another layer to this. Why is knowing it not possible? Because who or what is trying to know it? So we, let's say, Dr. Singh is
Right.
trying to know the infinite.
right,
But Dr. Singh, in his consciousness, is also the infinite.
Right.
Dr. Singh is a formation that the infinite has assumed
right,
for whatever temporal karmic purpose.
right,
It has assumed this form of Dr. Singh. And it will keep this form as long as it's necessary. After that, it will let go of the form.
right.
So, in his consciousness, he is the infinite. And being the infinite, he is therefore beyond measure. And being beyond measure, he is therefore unknowable. So, Dr. Singh, in his consciousness, is unknowable. He's knowable only in the measured form, whether it's a psychological mental form or a physical material form. These are knowable things. So I know Dr. Singh as a person, first as a physical rupa, the form. Rupa is form. It's a physical form. Then I know him as a psychological entity, the one I interact with, the one I call my friend. So that's a psychological entity. So these are all measurable. But behind it all, and supporting it all at all times, the essence of it all is the consciousness that calls itself Dr. Singh in this manifestation, in this finite, measurable manifestation. It identifies itself as Dr. Singh, and that same infinite consciousness in this particular formation identifies itself as Partho. But it's the same infinite, which in itself and by itself is unknowable.
Okay. So what is the whole attempt to become enlightened? What is enlightenment then?
Enlightenment, to my mind, is the point where you realize that there are no questions anymore. When all the questions have dropped and you seek no answers, you're enlightened.
So there's no great revelation. You don't see the tunnel of light, and you don't see the angels and coming and dancing.
That's a
Okay,
different
forget that.
story.
I'm getting carried away.
But that is there. It's a
Right.
different story.
Okay.
But when you come to enlightenment, nothing
Right.
really happens.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens. But you realize that nothing's happening anyway.
Okay.
So in the language of the Buddha, you realize that everything is empty. Everything seems to be there,
Right.
solid substance. But when you really go into the solid substance, it's empty. That's perhaps where we can draw a parallel with quantum physics. When you really go into the heart of the matter, there is no matter. There's neither heart nor matter. It's empty. So realizing the emptiness of this universe, realizing the emptiness of all forms, realizing the emptiness of consciousness itself, is coming to enlightenment.
But didn't the Buddha call it all a dukh sansar? This is all a grief, suffering, a world of suffering that we have to escape?
Well, no, I don't think he said it in so many words.
Okay.
I don't think that's what he meant.
What did he mean?
So,
When you say it's all dukh, this is all dukh.
I mean, okay. So when the Buddha says dukkha, that's a Sanskrit word, dukkha. The common translation of that word in the Hindi language is dukkha as the opposite of sukh.
Right.
Sukh, dukkha. Happiness, sorrow. So dukkha becomes sorrow and therefore suffering. But that's not so. When the Buddha used the word dukkha, he meant it as affliction. He meant it as change. A sort of a rising of a ripple in an otherwise waveless, rippleless consciousness. Let me explain. It needs a bit of an explanation. In Sanatan Dharma, we use a term ananda. You're aware of it.
Ananda.
Ananda. Often translated in the English language as bliss or delight.
Yes.
So ananda is bliss or delight. So people think that the only bliss or delight people know, most human beings know, is pleasure.
Yes.
Pleasure of the senses.
Right.
Slightly rarer, pleasure of the mind. The pleasure of reading philosophy or poetry.
Right.
But that's the pleasure most human beings know. So when we come to a word like ananda, which is translated as bliss or delight, we just take the pleasure that we know and raise it to the power of 10 or 100 or 1,000.
Right.
Which is all wrong again. Because if you go to the Vedantic understanding, which is what Sanatan Dharma talks about, and I've mentioned this in the book, we come to a very different kind of ananda. The experience of ananda is almost a non-experience. The experience of ananda transcends experience. We'll probably explain these phrases later. But what ananda is absolutely no movement of any kind in the consciousness. Not a ripple arises in the consciousness. Now think about it. I want to have a glass of wine. I want to have the best wine in the world. And there is a desire that arises in me. I must have that wine. I must have that wine. And then you serve me that wine. All right, you want it so much. Here you are. Here's the wine. And there's this whole desire in me. Now think about it. This desire is a movement. It distracts me from everything else because I want that wine. So I'm focused on that wine. I must have that wine. So almost you can see that my whole being is shrinking around that one thought, wine, wine, wine. Then I have the wine. What happens now? The moment I sip the wine enters my system. This is excellent wine. I keep it down. So what has happened is that shrinking that has been happening, wine, I want wine around, suddenly dissipates, releases. The whole thing releases because I've had the wine, right? So all the shrinking, all the stress in the consciousness around the idea of wine is all released.
Yes.
So for a moment, while you're having the wine, there is no ripple. It's still. Nothing happens, no change. And that's when you experience ananda, the ananda of having wine. But because we are all human beings living in a very sensory construct, I like this wine, and almost immediately the thought comes, I must have the next sip. And then the next one, and then the next one, till I finish the glass. And then the thought arises, I must have the next glass, and the next bottle, and the next whatever. And it's not always the wine, it changes.
Right.
So I'm always living in the stress of wanting something. I want this, I want that, I want to experience this. Finally, as the Buddha said, the final thing that any human being on this planet wants is experience. whether it's the experience of wine or a good cigar or a good car or doing a good job or earning a lot of money or having a lot of friends, it's the same thing. The experience of it. I mean, who would want an object for the sake of the object? It's the experience that the object gives you.
Right.
And as long as I want this object, my being compresses itself, shrinks itself around that idea of, no? And then I get this and there is a release, and then that is pleasure. And then again it all comes back. So what the Buddha said is, suppose you don't have this stress and shrinking at all. And in Vedanta we call this the state of desirelessness. Nesh kamya. Without kama, without desire, nishkam condition. What is nishkam? That there is no thought of an object in my consciousness. It's not that I want this, I want that. There's no want. There's no thought of an object. So there is no shrinking of the being. So instead of the shrinking, there is just infinite expansion. You're in an infinitely expansive state because there is no shrinking. There's no compression. And because there's no compression, there is no ripple. So that's called the rippleless state, the changeless state. In that state, there is Ananda. Now, this is very important to understand what Ananda is. So, Ananda is not, waves of pleasure. Ananda is having no wave at all. Ananda is not fulfillment of desire, but the state of fulfillment that occurs when there is no desire. So, think of it, visualize it as a perfectly placid lake of consciousness. Now, in this, a ripple arises. You present me with an object and suddenly, oh, I wish I have it. So in this perfectly placid state, perfect equilibrium, little ripple arises. That is what Buddha calls affliction. Because you have lost the Ananda. You have lost that state of infinite expansiveness, that changeless state where there is nothing but that bliss, which is, as our sages have described it, the indescribable bliss, bliss without beginning and end, Ananda. Suddenly that state is disrupted, disturbed. So any kind of disruption, any kind of disturbance is called an affliction, dukkha. And what Buddha said is that there is a way to be free of this dukkha. Not suffering,
okay,
but affliction, change. Which means, if we go deeper into the statement, that there is a way out of dukkha, it means that there is a way to that state where dukkha cannot occur.
Right.
We call it anamayam padam, this state where no suffering, no sorrow, no change is possible. And that is the nirvanic state. Perfect nirvana is being perfectly changeless. Everything happens, the whole universe flows into you and the whole universe flows out of you, and you remain in that perfectly placid state, that state of absolute expansiveness of being. No shrinking at all.
So it doesn't mean disappearing.
It doesn't mean disappearing.
Nirvana is not you.
It is, yes.
What you are.
It absolutely doesn't mean disappear. Many people think of nirvana as extinction. Extinction, but what really means is extinction of that which causes change. You may call it the ego, you may call it the self, you may call it desire. But these are things that cause the change. So when that is extinguished in you, that constant hankering for experience, there is a Sanskrit term that we use for it. There's a Sanskrit word for thirst.
Trishna.
Trishna. Thank you. Anubhuti Trishna. The thirst for experience is what defines the ordinary human being. Everything that any human being does is because of the thirst for a particular kind of experience. So nirvana is when there is no thirst for experience. You have transcended experience altogether. There is no Trishna, there is no Anubhuti Trishna. So it's not that I have no Trishna for the object or that I have no Trishna for the wine. I have no Trishna for experience. If the wine comes, fine. If it doesn't come, equally fine. So the Buddha state does not reject anything and does not run after anything. It neither, it's called it raga.
Raga.
This is neither a drawing of something towards oneself nor dvesha, pushing of something away from oneself. Right. But being in that state where anything and everything is welcome. Whatever comes, comes. Whatever goes, goes. Nothing, to use a beautiful phrase of the Buddha's, nothing sticks on to the consciousness. Every experience comes and goes, leaving no trace behind, no wake.
There is no wake.
Yes. So that, again, that perfect stillness. And that is the true meaning of nirvana.
So I remember one very beautiful line he had used. It's like the sky, when the geese have passed through.
Yes.
The sky remains as it is.
Yes.
Is that what you would call nirvana?
Precisely. That is nirvana. The geese is experience, yes. World experience, cosmic experience. Now the sky is not going to reject the geese. The sky is not going to say, you know what, I don't want the geese, I want only owls flying across my space.
Total acceptance.
Sky has no preference.
Right.
If geese come, geese come. If crows fly across, crows fly across. If nothing flies across, nothing flies across. So the sky remains empty. That emptiness is what Buddha is talking about all the time.
Is that the shunya?
That's the shunya. That is the emptiness that remains after all experiences have come and gone, after everything has come and passed. So when Buddha was ready to give up his life, his closest disciple begged him not to. He said, you have the power, so don't go, we still need you. So the Buddha laughed and said, the Buddha never comes, the Buddha never goes. So then he again explained that he who comes not, he who goes, he who comes not, he who passes not, know him as the Buddha. So that's exactly what he's talking about.
So it is not a negative thing, the shunya, oh my God, we're going to lose everything, it's going to be an end of me.
Not at all. The me itself is a construct that is empty. The Buddha said, always used to tell us to look at that. Look at the me and look very deeply at what you call the me. And you'll find that it's something that has been put together by experiences, memories, impressions, what we call sanskars in Sanskrit. All of these things have somehow stuck on and have become what you call myself. But if you keep on looking at it, they fall apart.
Like the story of the chariot.
Like the story of the chariot, yes.
When Nagasena asks the king how he came,
right,
he says, I came in a chariot.
Right.
He says, show me the chariot.
Right.
I see the wheels, I see the reins, I see the horse, I see the post. Where is the chariot? Is the chariot something around it?
Right.
Is it something hidden? He says no.
So where's the chariot?
So he basically just deconstructs.
Yes.
So similarly, we can, when we look at ourselves, we just see different what they call skandhas.
Yes.
Which make us.
Absolutely.
And then we think we are something solid, formidable.
Right. But it isn't there.
It is not there.
And quantum physics, as you mentioned it a while ago, helps us a lot in understanding this, the reality of things put together. Any kind of physics. I still remember the first insight I had was when I was studying physics, and I thought I was studying matter, molecules. And I realized there was no molecule really. They were just atoms put together. I thought, okay, this is interesting. Now I'm going to study atoms. Till I realized there was no atoms really. There was this nuclei of atoms and electrons going around the nuclei. And even the nuclei wasn't there. Even the electrons weren't there. The nuclei weren't there. And finally, I saw matter disappearing right in front of my eyes. The deeper I studied matter, the more it disappeared. And finally, I came to these very weird quantum particles, which were not even particles. And suddenly I was looking at matter that didn't matter anymore. That wasn't matter anymore. And that was the first insight I got into Vedanta, that this is it. It's everything is put together to give you an appearance of something which is really not there. And that is how the infinite portions itself off as finite entities, finite existences.
So I was reading this book on Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is a famous Buddhist philosopher, and one of his famous statements is, form is formless and formless is form. And he said that any entity, as you look at it, becomes empty, because any entity is nothing but a set of relationships that it has with everything else.
Yes.
But if you look at the other entity, that also is nothing but the relationships that it has.
Yes, yes. It's all relationships. It's an enormously complex web of relationships. From the quantum level to the cosmic. It's all a web of relationships. Everything interconnected, every strand interconnected with every other strand.
So I have a question on this, and there's a point of confusion. But let's talk about this I, since you alluded to the I, the me. And the Buddha, according to my understanding, says that there is no I, there is no self, anatta.
Anatta, no self.
No self, I don't exist. Only that indefinable, would you call Shunya exists. Everything is Shunya, and then after that you cannot say anything about things. Is that understanding
so
correct?
Shunya here means emptiness, which is the absence of a stable, permanent self, a stable, permanent, independent self. That is not there. As we just discussed, if you look at the self, you'll find that it's a fabrication of so many other things. So many things that have happened to you in your life, all your experiences, all the conditionings that you've acquired, all the knowledge that you've acquired, everything put together gives you a sense of the self, as the Vedantis say. That the self is also not there. It's only a sense of the self. If you really go deep into yourself, what you'll come to is a sense of the self. You sense that something's there, someone or something is there.
Right, there's a sense.
It's just a sense. It's not a real thing there. And when you examine the sense of the self, you again look very deeply into the sense of the self, then you find memories. Without memory, there is no sense of the self.
Is that right? I have a sense without memories.
Memory of yourself. Memory of having been here before. Memory of doing all these things that you did yesterday and day before yesterday, and all the way up to the time that you became conscious of yourself.
So if I drop
all
that
these
memory,
and memories again at various levels, psychological memory, memory of the cells,
yes,
you remember things. And if I take away all your memory, you don't have an identity anymore. So the self is a construct which you sense. And when you look at the sense, the construct falls away. You find that these memories are really not yours. They're no longer even real. No memory is real. Right. Even the memory of what we were doing before we came into this room is not real anymore. It's gone. It's finished.
Right.
Where is it? Where does it exist? Where does yesterday exist? Nothing. It's just the memory of it. So if the memory is not there, nothing exists beyond the here and now. So once you realize that, as the Buddha said, then the sense of being a person falls away from you. You're released from identity, from the sense of being a person. Then what remains is just what the Buddha called sense of being, that you are, which is really my final identity. If you really were to go into myself as I went into matter, if I go into myself and I allow everything to drop away, finally what I come to is just a sense of being, that I am. Even here, I can't say I am here, because here also loses meaning. Here is also something that you have put together as thought, a thought construct. Spring Hill, I'm here in Spring Hill means nothing really. What is Spring Hill? What is Florida? These are just names, labels. So all I can say, if I'm going to be utterly honest about who I am or what I am, my final identity, all I can say is I am. I'm not so and so, because that's again just things put together.
Right.
Conditioning. So I'm not Partho. I'm not a human, but that's also something put together. It's a notion. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm nothing, none of all this. But I am. That is undeniable. That's what I am finally. Finally, I am what I am. you know.
Okay, so hold on. You said I am, but Buddha says you are not. Anatta.
That's precisely what we get. This is one of the most complex, one of the subtlest things of Buddha's teachings.
Right.
So we have to take our time to get there.
Okay.
So finally, all you can say about yourself is I am.
Okay.
And Vedantis call it I amness. Ahamata.
Ahamata.
I amness. And that's the sense that you are and everything is. Which is just a sense, because there's no identification after that. It's your, what should I say? What's the phrase? Fundamental identity, perhaps. It's your fundamental identity, which is just a sense of being.
Or shall we say it is the only thing you really know?
Yes, if we can say the only thing I really know is that I am.
Right.
Every other kind of knowledge is constructs, thought constructs. So when I look deep into it, I realize the final futility of all knowledge. Because finally, the only thing I can know is that I am. I can't even know what this I am is.
Right.
So if you ask me, what are you? I can't say what I am, but I can say that I am. Now, in that I am, the pure I amness, there is no other construct. It's empty of self. That's
empty
what
of self?
Yes, this I amness is empty of self, empty of identity. What is self? Identity.
Right.
So it's empty of self.
Right.
And it's that emptiness of self is as much in you as it's in me, because it's the same emptiness in all forms. When you go that deep inside any form at all, any human form or non-human form, or
Right.
any form, if you go that deep inside, you'll come to that same emptiness, which just is. No identity.
No identity.
No identity.
No self.
No identification. No self. Anatma, from where the word anatta, the Pali word anatta,
Right.
Sanskrit, anatma. Atma is self. No self. So the debate, the so-called Vedantis and so-called Buddhists, is that means, and Vedanta talks about the Atma, supreme self.
Right.
Therefore, the Buddha denies the supreme self of the Vedantis, the Atma of the Vedantis. But no, wait. What is the Atma of the Vedantis? So even Vedanta says that you cannot go to that Atma of the Vedanta as long as there is even the least trace of identity or identification in you. The Vedanti too says the same thing. Look at your experience, look at yourself, and you'll find only experiences put together, memories and experiences and memories of experiences. That's all we are, finally. At the end of the day, I am my experiences and the memories of my experiences, going as far back as possible in time. All the layers of conditioning, even prenatal, all that together is what I am. But when I look at it, all that falls away. It's like the Buddha used to say that if you string beads together and you have a necklace, and you're looking at all the beads and you think it's a real thing. But take away all the beads. What you have is a thread. What is this thread on which all the beads are strung together? What is this thread? So that sense of being without any becoming, being without becoming, is that reality that the Buddha is pointing towards. So the Buddha used to say, don't ask questions, don't describe, don't label. I'm pointing to something. Don't even get stuck with the finger that's pointing. Concentrate, focus on what the finger is pointing to, and you will get glimpses of the reality. Do not debate, do not argue, don't ask questions. Atma, Anatma, these are not questions for you to ask. Look at what I'm pointing at. Just look at what I'm pointing at. And very few have been able to do that. To follow his finger and see what he's pointing at, and then forget the finger too. And then you will stare into the heart of, I don't even know, infinite.
Emptiness.
Because infinite is empty. Only the finite is, what is measured and measurable are filled constructs. But the infinite is not measurable. Therefore, it contains nothing. Therefore, it's empty.
So I think the problem that we take is we take shunya as a mathematical number which is zero. Yes. Isn't that an understanding? Zero. It's nothing.
Even there, mathematics doesn't understand. I mean,
right.
The mathematical notion of infinity itself is the same. It's the same. Like, okay, 1,
right,
and 2,
right.
I can understand 1 finite, 2 finite.
Right.
Now, mathematics says there's infinite between 1 and 2. Infinity.
Right.
Why? Because between 1 and 2 is 1.5.
Right.
Between 1 and 1.5 is half of that, and half of that,
right.
and half of that. And where will you stop? You won't. It's infinite.
The fractional numbers will be infinite.
Infinite.
Right.
So, now the problem is, and Ramanuj said this very beautifully, that if the mind gets fixed with the numbers, which are finites, then you may get an illusion that you're getting infinity. Oh, you know what? The famous Zeno's paradox,
right,
where he plays around with this concept. So, between everything finite is the infinite. But if you're fixed with the finites, you get a sense of the infinite. You feel that you've understood infinity, but you haven't at all. And to know that you haven't, remove the finites, the numbers, and your mind is lost. Your mind just falls through that hole between the finites. And that's your taste of the infinite. And you can't describe it. Try to describe that infinite between two finites, you can't. No mathematics has been able to do that. So again, all this is pointing to something.
Right.
The finite is pointing to that. So all our experiences in this finite universe is continuously pointing to the infinite. But we are stuck with the finger that points to the we are stuck to the finite. Therefore, we do all these things we call yoga and sadhana and spiritual discipline and religion and all that to get to the infinite, but we'll never get there because the infinite is always there. What is not the infinite? It is, because this is a manifestation of the infinite. So everything is infinite. But I'm looking at 1 and 2.
So let's move back from the Buddha, because that was very enlightening, if I may use the word, unintended. Now that I'm enlightened, let's go back to the other concept of Mayavada. Since we began with all this began illusion. And I'm brought to this famous formula that Shankara, who was supposed to be the proponent of Mayavada, said, Brahman Satyam, and Brahman being that reality is the only truth, right? Brahman, that infinite is right?
Yes.
Jagan Mithya, this the universe is an illusion. Again, he comes back to this universe is an illusion. So why is he saying
so
that?
Mithya is not illusion.
What is Mithya?
Okay. There are these categories in Vedanta. The real and the non-real.
Okay.
That which doesn't exist. And between the two, that which seems to exist but does not exist.
Okay.
So Sat is the real.
Right.
Asat is that which does not exist, the non-real.
Right.
But between Sat and Asat is Mithya.
Okay.
It seems to exist. In that sense, it's real. But it's really not there in that sense. It's not real. Think of a mirage in the desert.
Right.
It seems to exist. Very real. There are people who have run towards it and have jumped into
Right.
it.
Right.
And then once you jump into it, you realize it's all sand anyway. There's no water. That was a mirage. But as long as that mirage lasted in your mind, as long as it interacted with your consciousness, it was real for you, real enough for you to run towards it. It's only when you get there that you realize it's not there. So that's mithya. So Jagan mithya or Jagat mithya. Jagat is that which continuously changes. That's the meaning of Jagat in Vedanta. Now this is again remarkably similar to physics. That which continuously changes cannot be real. Because if A is continuously changing to A plus and A double plus, so on and so forth, which A is real? Either all of them are real or none of it is real.
Yes.
And the Buddha said exactly the same thing. He defined this existence as impermanent. That was, all existence is impermanent. Anityam. And why does he say that all this is not real, all this is empty? It's because all this is continuously changing. It's continuous momentum. So physics again gives you a glimpse of the non-reality of the world based on complete continual impermanence of all cosmic experience. So that which is continuously changing, continuously moving is called Jagat. Now this Jagat, because it is continuously moving and continuously changing, is not real. But in its continuous movement, it seems to be real. It's again the Buddha's example of lighted agarbatti,
Lamp,
fragrant
candle.
stick.
Yeah.
Or there's a glow there and
Yes.
and it seems to be a circle of fire.
Right.
But it's not actually a circle of fire. If you slow it down, then these are these disparate points.
Right.
Between which there is nothing. Shunya.
Right.
So but as long as you're moving it, it seems to be real.
Right.
So the Buddha used to say, and the Vedantis, he used to say that as long as the mind is in continuous movement, everything seems to be real. Everything is there because the mind is continuously moving. So you feel that the world is real, Jagat Satyam.
Right.
But still the mind, Rishi Patanjali defined yoga, yogas, chitta, vritti, nirodha. Still the mind. The moment you do that, motion stops. The moment that happens, Jagat disappears. Jagat, that's why the Buddha made such a profound statement. Jagat arises with the mind and subsides with the mind. As long as the mind is in movement, Jagat is there, that which continuously moves. The moment the mind is stilled, Jagat is gone. So what remains then? That which appeared to be Jagat, which is what? Brahma. So it's in that sense he says Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya.
So in our modern parlance, we would say only that infinite is, and the finite is a misperception or imposition?
Yeah, the finite is an appearance. Arising out of the motion of the infinite. When the infinite moves, it creates the finite. That's how Maya works. As we just discussed, that Maya is the power that limits the infinite to the finite, that compresses the infinite into the finite, that defines the infinite as a finite. But how does it do that? So the Vedantis say that Maya, the power of Maya moves. It's a moving power, gati. So movement comes when into that which infinite cannot move, right? There's no movement in the infinite. But for movement, you need space and time.
Right.
The infinite cannot move. But when you move, when you bring movement into the infinite, finite is instantly created. The finite takes, manifests. And this movement in the infinite consciousness is the mind, because the mind is moving. And that's why the absolute insistence of all yogic disciplines is the stillness of mind. Any yoga you go to, the first insistence will be still the mind. Silence the mind. Why so important? It's because everything comes apart when the mind stops moving. The moment the mind is stilled, the infinite is there, because the finite is the movement of the mind. So the moment the movement of the mind is gone, stillness, the finite is gone. You're immediately, that very moment, you're infinite. Tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam yogaschitta vritti nirodha tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. Yoga is stillness of the consciousness, stillness of the mind, and the moment that happens, the seer, the experiencer, realizes itself as that which never moves. It settles in its own real being, which is infinite, which is motionless, the unmoving, the unchanging, the nitya in the anityam.
So, is this the understanding of Sanatan Dharma? What we have talked about,
This is Sanatan
Sanatan
Dharma,
Dharma.
yes.
So, when we say,
And this is Vedanta,
and even
this is
Buddhism,
Buddha.
this is Buddha. So, when we say that I am, the formula,
Yes,
is that what it means? That not this ego, this construct that
Yes.
has been created,
Yes.
Me,
yeah. When all
Dr.
that is
Singh,
gone,
that all that is gone,
so that which remains,
that which remains is that anyway.
yes.
Isn't that a tautology though? If that
So
which
it's very
remains
interesting when, if you go back to the biblical story when Moses is going to meet God,
Right.
say that, ask the name of God.
Right.
He goes in the burning bush and he meets God. The first question he asks is, tell me thy name.
Right.
You know what he says?
Yes,
I
yes.
am that I am.
That's right.
So it's exactly the same mystical experience. When you've transcended all experience, all subject-object duality of experience, you reach that which is, and that is what I am, in its final essence.
So let's come back to the Buddha one more time, because there are some things that, or maybe actually it's the Vedanta too, where the concept of everything coming together at the same time. Everything, right now we are here, everything is there together, which he calls codependent arising, right? Or everything is dependent on each other,
And everything else,
and everything has come together.
right.
And what they call pratitya samutpad in Vedanta.
Yes.
And if you remove even one thing,
The whole thing falls.
the whole thing collapses.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how does this fit in with the emptiness? That everything is connected to each other, and the moment you see the connection, you realize that there is no such thing existing by itself.
Yes. The absence of self-existence. Because if A exists because of B and C, and you take away B and C, A is gone.
Right.
So A has no independent existence.
Of itself.
Therefore, it is empty of self.
Right.
Because think of it, anything in this universe, again from the quantum to the cosmic, everything is because of something else that is or is not.
Instantaneously.
Yeah, so A is because of A plus and A minus. I mean, just.
Right.
So the rain is because of evaporation and condensation,
Right.
because of water.
Right.
But if you take away the water, if you take away the atmospheric processes, there is no rain. Right. There's no cloud. So was the cloud there at all to begin with? No. What you saw as the cloud was a cause and effect of other things. It was caused by something else and affected something else. So whatever we see, we are not seeing that entity. We are seeing what has caused that entity and what that entity is causing in a continuous chain of causation. That's pratitya samutpanna. This arises because of that. This happens because of that. And this happens because that happened and that did not happen. And that did not happen because that happened. And that did not happen. And so on and so forth. There's no end to this. You'll get to the beginning of the universe with that.
But if we are living in the present, right now, where as we drop identity and I drop memory, then even what happens to that causation?
So you have to
exists.
drop causation too.
Right.
Causation is the skandhas that you spoke about.
Right.
All that which is put together by, all that coming together is cause and effect, pratyuta samutpanna. So for you, let's, Dr. Singh, Pariksith Singh.
Right.
For you to get beyond yourself, you have to transcend all that has caused you to be what you are. To be what you are and who you are. So to trace out what you are and who you are in the here and now, you have to go back to everyone that you have met so far. Every person you have met and who has in any way influenced you or impacted you, changed you in that little bit, from here to there, the little change that has come because you've met someone, negative or positive, has made you what you are. Your parents, your siblings, your childhood, every child you met, your schools, everywhere you went, everything you heard has made you what you are. And most of the things we hear, we are not even conscious of them. And everything is making us what we are. So to get beyond that identity, you have to get beyond every cause and every effect. Because you're not just cause, you're also affecting causes. You're also causing effects.
Right.
And that is what the person is. But if you remove all these causes and effects, the person is gone. There was no person. There was only this cosmic web of causes and effects. Where was the person in it? So, therefore, no self.
Okay. So, your book on Sanatan Dharma is to me very important. The reason I consider it important is because of the immensely significant topic it is dealing with, and the way you translate it is usually translated in English as the Philosophia Perennis, or the perennial philosophy, which kind of is an incorrect interpretation.
Yes.
So the way we understand, at least Sanatana, is that which is eternal, which is endless, which is universal, which is infinite. Is that a reasonable understanding?
Yes. Sanatan Dharma. The eternal order of things.
Eternal order of things.
The eternal harmony in things.
So when we come to Dharma, I recently saw it translated as duty.
No.
It's not my duty.
In a very limited, simple way. If you, for the Hindi word for duty is dharma, right? Or is it kartavya?
Kartavya, yes. It's not really
kartavya. So what would you call duty in Hindi? This is your
not
duty,
dharma.
so your kartavya. So it's not dharma.
No. So if I'm following my dharma, let's get very basic. I'm talking about practical things. So even though I get rid of all my identifications, but I'm supposed to be in the practical world, I'm a physician.
Yeah, so your dharma as a physician
Right.
is intertwined with your identity as a physician.
Right.
So as long as you call yourself Dr. Singh, you are identifying with being a doctor.
Right.
Your dharma.
Right.
Also your karma. Actually, if you look at it carefully, it's your karma. That you've made your dharma.
Right.
And what is dharma in a very simple sense? It's that which makes you what you are. It's that which holds you together as an entity.
Right.
So what is it that holds Dr. Singh together? The doctor part of it.
Right.
But is it true really? If you stop being a doctor tomorrow, will you stop being the person that you are? No. You'll still be what you are. So that dharma is gone.
Okay.
So then you say, okay, my dharma is, if I'm not a doctor, what am I? A philosopher, writer. But if you stop writing and philosophizing, will you cease to be? No. You'll still be there. That dharma is also gone. So you see, the dharmas also fall away.
Okay, so then I'm a human being.
So human being is your last
citizen.
dharma, perhaps.
Okay, yeah.
The dharma, the manav dharma we call it. The
Right.
dharma of being human.
Right.
But That's your last identity as human. Even that has to fall away because your consciousness itself.
Right. Then what am I going to do?
So you don't do anything. All doing falls away from you. You become, you transcend doing because you've transcended becoming. Becoming and doing are together. You can't become without doing.
Right.
So becoming and doing fall away to leave only being, pure being. And in that, there is no dharma. Sri Krishna actually exhorts us to do that. Sarva dharman parityajya.
Right. Abandon all
dharma.
give up all dharmas.
So, he says sarva dharman parityajya, but how? You can't just give up all dharma.
Right.
You have to grow in consciousness for dharma to fall off. What he really means is grow so much in your consciousness, inward and upward, that all your dharmas one by one fall away. Because every dharma of yours finally limits you to what you are. So as you grow in consciousness, the dharmas fall away. As you grow, the dharmas become too small to contain you. So the dharmas is like, imagine you're wearing this and then you're simply growing and the clothes will fall away. What dharma can contain the infinite in its expression? There is no dharma. That's why he says, and when all the dharmas have fallen away, then you come to me, which is the infinite being.
But there are practical issues about it. So do I stop seeing patients? What does that mean? If I realize that this is an illusion, this is a construct, Dr. Singh being a doctor.
And everything else.
Illusion of I'm a father, I created children.
Which actually you didn't. It was
I agree. Okay, it happened.
biological process.
Okay, and I wrote books, which you can say
Intellectual
people in knowledge came from others, and I put it together.
Absolutely.
Right. So then I'm going to be
liberated from all these notions.
But then I'm not doing anything, am I?
No, you're not. You're liberated from all that. You don't need to do anything. It's gone.
Okay.
You're just being.
Then do I do anything or nothing?
There is no
whatever
I.
happens.
By then there is no I. By the time you get to that, not all of us get to that.
Right.
But if any of us manages to get to that, there is no I. Your identities have all dropped. Who's the I? Where is the I?
So there's no one to do anything.
There is no one to do anything.
So then what happens?
That's an interesting question. What happens? So, go back, let's say, to the origin. We are the infinite.
Right.
And this infinite has become us as the finite.
Right.
And it has become the finite and become us. At every step, it has differentiated itself further and further into finites. One finite, another finite, till it has become you and me.
Yes.
Now, the reverse process. We go back to the source. We go back to being the infinite being. Because all becoming is finite. Unless you come to infinite becoming. That's another story altogether. But as you go back, you move back towards the infinity of your consciousness, your infinite consciousness. Ananta. Anadi Ananta. You have no beginning, you have no end when you realize what you are. Because time and space themselves were dharmas in you, which have fallen away. So now you returned to the Anadi Ananta. You return to the infinite consciousness, Brahma, that you are. Then what happens? Who's doing then? What is happening? The moment you have reached the source, you're back to the infinite consciousness, your Brahma, then Brahmic action alone is happening. Then this whole cosmos is action happening through you. Where do you stop the action? Then everything, not only what Dr. Singh is doing, everything that Partho is doing, that Jason is doing, that anyone on this planet, the President of the United States is doing, the Prime Minister of India is doing, everything, even something that the dacoit, the robber is doing, the criminal is doing, or the saint sitting in his ashram is doing. Everything that is happening in this universe is happening in you. You're doing it. You're the doer. You're the only doer that there is. Infinite, that infinite consciousness that is flowing through infinite action and infinite points of action and becoming infinite forms and dissolving infinitely. Infinitely becoming forms infinitely and dissolving infinitely. And it's an infinite process. endless, beginningless. Everything is you. So one can then say that you don't exist or everything is you.
Right.
That you do nothing, yet everything is done through you. So in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, this is the meaning of what Sri Krishna calls nimitta bhava.
To be an instrument.
Instrument. Instrument of what? This cosmos itself. That which is infinite is working through you. You are therefore an instrument.
So we become instruments of the infinite. Can we call the infinite the divine? Or is
Yes, that is what we are finally. That Tvamasi. So the thing that I find the most delightful about it all is the fact that finally I am my own instrument. This finite I is an instrument of the infinite me. And I just have to close that loop. And it's all done.
So, and I know there's this controversial, if you're tired, we can take a break.
No, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine.
So let's talk about some more controversial things.
Right?
So you took, your Sanatan Dharma was based on your understanding of Sanatan Dharma, right? You understood it, you experienced it, you lived it intensely, sincerely. But others have a different understanding of Sanatan Dharma.
They're perfectly entitled to their own understanding of Sanatan Dharma.
So, say someone says, like Swami Vivekananda would say, Vedanta is you have to work hard, you have to fight, you have to do the right thing for serve, right? The divine within everybody else. That's what, right? And then you have Maharshi Ramana, who is absolutely still, who is not talking about serving others. So which one is right?
Both are right.
Both
Everything is right.
Is there one definition of Vedanta then, or there are just multiple interpretations?
To my mind, there's no one definition. See, it's not a question of definition and interpretation. It's a question of experience and realization.
Okay.
And what we are realizing is the infinite self in all, infinite divine, Brahma. So the way Pariksith will realize Brahma will be very different from the way Partho will realize Brahma, though both are realizing the same Brahma. This is again another very subtle and nuanced point for most people to get, that you're experiencing the same reality, but you're experiencing it differently. So, this reality that we are experiencing, Brahma, lends itself to myriad experiences and realizations, lends itself across a spectrum of experience without in any way changing itself. Now, this is the difference between the finite and the infinite. The finite mind trying to grasp the finite reality of this universe will not understand this, because it says, how can different people experience the same reality and express it differently, articulate it differently? But the moment you understand that what you're experiencing is not finite, it's infinite. Therefore, the infinite can be expressed through infinite expressions and manifestations, infinite realizations, yet it remains the same. So that is the quality of the infinite, which is nearly impossible for a finite mind to grasp. The finite mind cannot grasp the infinite. So as far as everything is finite, A is A, B is B. But infinite, A is A and A is an infinity of other things.
Right.
All together, all simultaneously.
Yes. Just like an electron is both a particle and a wave.
Yes.
And energy. Yes. And just a concept in our head.
So you again, Dr. Singh, Pariksith Singh, the way I'll experience you as my friend.
Yes.
My childhood friend. So my experience of Pariksith will be very different from the way your daughter experiences you as her father.
Yes.
From the way your patient experiences you as his or her doctor.
Right.
Or as your associate experiences you. Yeah?
Right.
Yet do you change in all this?
No.
You don't change in all this. Your expression may change. You will not relate to Jason, for instance, the way you relate to me, and you won't relate to me the way you relate to Shan.
Right.
But in your different relationships, will you change? No, you won't. You're still the same consciousness. So this is true for all humans. Now
Yes.
think of the infinite consciousness. So the Vedantis talk of a level of experience and realization, which they call it Purna, complete. And that is realizing the infinite in infinite ways simultaneously. That is an experience not given to even the greatest of rishis. That's an experience reserved only for what's called the Maharishis of rishis. I mean, that's an experience one can only aspire for.
Right. Where
Perhaps
the infinite is
in several
experienced.
lifetimes of yoga, one would come to that, where you have an infinite experience of the infinite being in infinite ways and expressions. That is the final point. That's where Vedanta comes to its anta.
Right, its end.
Yes.
So hold on a moment. Wait. So every person experiences Vedanta differently.
Yeah.
Or
Because
right?
Vedanta is oceanic.
Right. So it's like me going on the Gulf of Mexico saying,
Yes.
okay, this is all shallow.
Right.
And then someone goes in the Pacific and oh my God, big rollers, I can't, I have to do something else there. I have to be safe. I'll drown. Or then someone else going to a little, maybe a little lake that is peaceful, or someone goes to a swamp, which is, right? So different ways of expressing the infinite or experiencing.
Right.
But then how can you say your book is correct, the correct
I do
interpretation?
not say my book is correct.
Okay. What do you say?
What do I say? I actually don't say anything. See, the book is called This is Sanatan Dharma.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And-
you said this is Sanatan Dharma.
Yeah, I don't say this is Sanatan. I say this
Okay.
is Sanatan Dharma.
This is Sanatan.
If it isn't, then ask me why it isn't.
Right.
So here, and I'm not being, I'm neither being facetious nor arrogant. What I'm saying is that I've in a very simple way have said that Sanatan Dharma, however it may manifest, has only one fundamental concept, conception. No, actually, these are not the right words. There's a fundamental truth around which all of Sanatan Dharma is built, whatever be its various manifestations. And what is that one truth upon which everything is built? That there is only one reality.
One
Call
reality.
it by any name,
Okay.
it is still that one reality. Undifferentiated. So we call it Brahma. That's just a name, okay? Brahma itself means just expansion, infinite expansion. So it's the name I'm happiest with. It has no connotations at all, just infinite expansion. You may as well call it an ocean, a
Notion.
boundless ocean,
Ocean.
boundless ocean, oceanic. So same thing.
Shoreless ocean.
Shoreless, it's just a lovely word, shoreless, a shoreless ocean. So if you can imagine shoreless ocean, if you can hold the concept of a shoreless ocean in your mind, you're holding infinity in your mind. We can't, most of us can't. We'll always be imagining shores because that's how the finite mind operates, that's how it functions. So that one foundational truth is oneness. Ekam Sat. Reality is one. That's the truth. But this reality, which is one, manifests infinitely. Now, this is not a second truth. This is the truth that derives from the first truth and makes the non-manifest manifest. There is only one reality, only one truth, Ekam Sat, which manifests infinitely. So the two statements are actually one. So the Sanatan Dharma is not saying there is only one reality. It is saying there is only one reality that manifests as the many. That is the complete statement of Sanatan Dharma, which I call the foundational truth. Now, if you reflect on that one single statement, that there is only one truth that manifests infinitely, you have explained the whole universe. The whole book is explained in that one sentence. and here I'm really being very objective. That whole book is expressed in that one single statement. There's only one truth, the only one reality that is manifesting multiply, infinitely. Therefore, now all the other statements will be derived from this
that
master statement, this Mahavakya. That because it's that one reality manifesting as the many is the one.
Right.
Yet, the many do not cease to be the many when they are the one. The many and the one are simultaneously one and the many.
Right.
That is why I
Right.
have to listen carefully, but because it's all deriving from the statement.
Right.
And therefore, all forms of life, all cosmic forms, all cosmic existences are that one reality. Undifferentiated, yet infinitely differentiated at the same time. You don't have to make concessions to the human mind and say, oh, you know what, at this level it is one undifferentiated reality. At that level it's a differentiated multiplicity. No, it's all together. The same thing at the same time, yet everything at all time. And if you can grasp it, fine, you have touched the infinite. If you can't, your problem. Now this is Sanatan Dharma. So how you grasp it, how you understand it, how you process it in your mind, how you bring it to your living experience is up to you. That is what makes you what you are. Sanatan Dharma doesn't say that you have to be like this. It says, whichever way you have grasped the truth, you will live the truth.
And that's okay.
It's perfectly all right, because it's the same truth that you're grasping.
But what if my truth is to hurt others?
So be it. You will go on hurting others till someone hurts you. Because cause and effect.
Right. And then I'll stop
And you can't even begin to hurt others without being hurt yourself. No person who's not hurt himself or herself can ever hurt anyone else. The fact that somebody is hurting you means he or she himself or herself is hurt, and deeply hurt. Only deeply hurt people hurt others. Only deeply wounded people are dishonest, deceive. So it's a different worldview altogether.
So, hold on. If the one is many and the many is one is in the many and the many is always the one. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So, what happens to the concept of monism where we say, like there is a philosophy of monism, all is one. But you have gone beyond that. It is not only one, it is the infinite
Yes.
manifesting. So you cannot be rigid about a definition then.
Yeah. No, but I have not defined Sanatan Dharma or Vedanta as monistic at all, anywhere.
Okay.
Because it's monistic and it's not monistic. It goes beyond monism and dualism. It has to, by its very nature.
And where does religion fit in this?
Religion, again, what do you mean by religion?
Religion, say we have different religions in the world, you know how important
Okay, that kind
religions,
of religion. Religion that you practice
religion
based
that
on
belief-
belief of a God.
belief system and
A
all.
belief system, thoughts. So every belief system is a thought system.
Right.
And every belief system is conditioning, cultural, psychological, from the moment you're born.
Right.
Which is fine, actually, but it's nothing to do with Sanatan Dharma, nothing to do with truth. Truth, let's face this.
Okay. Face the truth.
Yeah, no. The truth cannot be acquired. It
Cannot be
given.
acquired.
No one can acquire truth. No one can give you the truth. It's not that you're born to a family and the family, your father or your grandfather says that, you know what, you're born into this family, therefore this culture and religion, and therefore this is the truth. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. Why doesn't it work like that? Because the very purpose of your birth is to find the truth for yourself. That's the purpose of your birth in Sanatan Dharma. All other purposes are temporary. They come, they go. They don't define you. What defines you, the only purpose that defines you is your quest for the truth. So this truth cannot be given. It is not a given. It cannot be acquired. It cannot be learned. It cannot be prescribed for you. What is prescribed for you, what is learnt, what is acquired, what is given, is thought system, belief system. For the truth, you have to dive within.
So
the original sense of the word, the original meaning of the word religion, if you go to the Latin origin of religion, it really meant reuniting with the source. The source is the divine. You reunite with the divine, which is also exactly the meaning of yoga.
right.
So in that sense, of course, it can be called a religion, but not in any other sense.
So religion as a set of prescriptions, this is how you're going to behave, this is how you have to act.
Nothing to do with this.
This is how you have to believe.
Yes, nothing to do with all that.
So what is the place of Sanatan Dharma in the world today? I mean, you will have, I can assure you that a lot of people will disagree with you.
Yeah.
And
Actually, if you define your terms properly, nobody will disagree. If you forget the Sanskrit, Sanatan Dharma,
right,
the moment you say Sanatan Dharma, you've started the process. Sanskrit, therefore Indian, therefore Hindu, therefore this, therefore that, all nonsense. Just don't use the Sanskrit. What's the English expression of Sanatan? How do you say Sanatan Dharma in English?
the eternal
That's it. Eternal
order
of things.
Eternal harmony?
Eternal harmony, eternal order and harmony of things. That's how Dharma is defined. That which is the eternal, that which is the order that holds cosmos together, the cosmic order.
Right, but say, hold on.
Right.
But so one religion will say, no, that's not the way it is. I have
So
right,
may I?
right. God created this world.
So the first thing is
Right.
there is an eternal order of things.
Right.
Who will disagree with that?
Okay, that's fine.
I don't think there's anyone who's going to disagree with that.
Yeah, well, people may, but that's fine. Let's accept it that no one will disagree. People
No
will say
one's
there's
going
an
to disagree with they may say their God has created this order of
Right,
things, but
right.
there is an order of things.
Okay, we'll accept that.
Yeah. But no one said there's no order of things, because then we are living in chaos.
Okay, right,
And I define cosmos as order.
right,
Otherwise, it's chaos.
right,
So there's a cosmos,
right,
which means there's an order.
right.
And do we need to find that order or not? Do we
It
need
would
to
be nice,
realize that order or not?
Yes.
Here, there may be differences. Someone may
Right.
say, no, my book tells me what the order is. So fine, go to your book and be limited by your book. I have no problems.
Okay,
Because for me, life is eternal. You will come back in some form or the other and discover the truth anyway, because that is in the heart of your heart. Each one of us has this truth in the heart of our heart. So we will find it sooner or later. It may take you 10 lifetimes, it may take me 100 lifetimes. In an eternal sense, how does it matter? 10 or 100. No. So accept that there is an order of things and then reflect on it, meditate on it. And every religion in its original sense has talked about self-reflection and meditation. Even when you talk of scripture, the book, there is always a meditation on what you read, a meditation on the book.
right,
So if you meditate on some of the most important things that your scripture will tell you, you will find they're referring to the same reality, the same order and harmony of things which you have to realize within yourself. If not, you're in disharmony.
right,
She or he who hasn't realized the order and the harmony of this universe within himself or herself is living in disharmony. And that's how in Sanatan Dharma, that's another definition of suffering. What is suffering? Disharmony.
right,
What is disharmony? Not knowing the harmony of the universe within yourself. As if you're something separate from the universe, which you are not. Physics will tell you you're not that. Biology will tell you you're not that. So if you discover the cosmic harmony in yourself, it automatically means that you are that cosmic harmony.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no way you can discover.
Right. Right.
So you are in that harmony of things. You are that cosmic harmony manifesting through you. And when you realize that, you've realized the eternal order of things, the eternal harmony of things. You've come to Sanatan Dharma, in whichever language you call it.
So much of this is, there are two aspects of religion, as you know, the outer aspect, and then there is the mystical, esoteric
Yes.
aspect of
Yes.
every religion.
True.
So, for example, Kabbalah in Judaism
Right.
would perhaps take you to a similar sense of unity,
Yes.
which I think
It
that's
does
one of the
actually,
fundamental concepts of the Kabbalah. Or in Christianity, you know, Christ talks about the same thing, I and my Father are one. Now, if you take Christ out of the theology, the organization around him, and you go to the spirituality of Christ, you would perhaps be in that same sense of discovery.
If you go pre-Christian time, before the Christian theology developed the way it has, we have what's called Gnostic Christianity. And Meister Eckhart, for instance.
Meister Eckhart.
And a lot of other very profound thinkers and mystics of the Christian religion have all been Gnostic Christians. And what is this What is this Gnosticism? It is that which refers directly to the divine, without going through a church, which of course the established church later on does not accept. But in its historical context, it was perfectly par for the course. Because the difference is what? If you talk in Vedantic terms in Christianity, there is one line of Christian thinking that says that there is Christ and you have to approach Christ through the church. And the other line that says that Christ consciousness is within you. There is Christ, but it's a Christ consciousness, which is a divine consciousness, which is within you. And the deeper within you go, the more you come to that Christ consciousness. Now, the moment you've established which line you want, then I always say, I used to do retreats, Christian retreats. I always used to say that once you've decided which line you want to take up, then you read your testament, then you read the Bible in the light of that line.
Right.
And you'll find how the metaphors reveal themselves. Every single thing that you're talking about, starting from Genesis, for instance, is metaphorical, not to be taken literally. But how will you get into the metaphor and the symbol of it without a mystical experience? So all the great Christian mystics have had the mystical experience of Christ consciousness and then have interpreted the scripture. Therefore, it has been so different.
Yes.
So that has happened in every religion that I know of. But if there's a group of people who say, no, we don't accept that, you have to accept this, then it's your choice. What problems can anyone have? Even that's happened in Sanatan Dharma, hasn't it?
Right. Why did you write this book?
Because I didn't find a good book myself. There was a time I wanted to understand Sanatan Dharma myself.
Right.
Because I knew that Vedanta has expressed itself as Sanatan Dharma in our country.
Right.
And I was a student of Vedantas, but I wanted to learn more about Sanatan Dharma, and I couldn't find a single good book in English that would satisfy a mind like mine. So I finally, it came to me. And if you want to know how it came to me, then you're involved in the play.
How did it come to you?
You and Anirudh gave me a book on Sanatan Dharma that, how is this? Is it good for publication? I went through it and said, no, it doesn't work.
Right.
So that's when you told me that maybe it's time for you to write one yourself, and that's how it came about.
And because Sanatan Dharma itself has been caught up in belief systems,
Yes,
and certain rituals.
Yes.
And
same thing has happened, the two lines.
Two lines.
If one line of Sanatan Dharma is they make a God.
Right.
And this is God, and outside of you.
Right. There's a sitting on the cloud somewhere.
Maybe not, but
yeah,
outside of you.
Watching you.
And
yes.
you can never become that.
Right.
Sanatan Dharma says it. There's a line of Sanatan.
Right. There is.
And there's the other, I call it the Vedantic line of Sanatan Dharma. That says that you are that reality. Tat Tvamasi.
Right.
But how deep will you go to find that?
Right.
How deep will anyone go to find the truth?
Right.
So this is, I call it the difference between the believer and the mystic. The believer settles with belief systems.
Right. Just accept.
And whatever the book says, whatever the teachers say, whatever the preachers say, you accept that. So you remain a believer for the rest of your life. You do not ever come to the experience of the divine.
Right.
But the other line is the mystical, the mystic. The mystic does not accept belief. He or she says, only by realization will I come to the truth. Whatever I will realize, that I will live. It has nothing to do with belief. Because something that I've realized, I don't need to believe in it.
Right.
By the very word belief. Belief means something I believe in.
Right.
Have you lived, have you experienced it? I don't know.
Yeah. You don't
But
know.
I believe in it.
Right.
But the mystic never uses that language. The mystic never says, I believe in it. The mystic says, I know it. And this is not the arrogance of intellectual knowledge. A mystic never says, I know it in that sense. Mystic says, I know it, I live it.
Right.
It's like love, human love.
Right.
I believe in love. I may be hating you all the time. I may be filled with bitterness and hatred, but I believe in love. And the other is the lover. I don't know about belief, but I am in love. I know love. I am in love. So that knowledge is not the arrogance of the intellect. That knowledge is simply because you're experiencing love. I am in love. So that's the mystical state. I am in love. So that's the difference.
So this would be more an introduction, an introductory approach to what Sanatan Dharma
We call it a
is?
primer, actually. It's a easy reference book. And this is meant to at least trigger your, not curiosity, but it's a process within you.
Right.
And then how far you go with it is entirely up to you.
So you said something about belief. There's one system of belief. Would you call this a system of questioning, relentless, ceaseless questioning?
Except I wouldn't use the word system,
Okay.
but yes, questioning, inquiry.
And through inquiry, you discover the truth.
Yes.
The deeper, the more you inquire,
Yes.
relentlessly, the
Yes.
truth will
Yes.
unveil
Yes.
itself.
The only thing is that inquiry, if you use the word inquiry, you shouldn't just understand it as a mental process.
I'm talking about
Inquiry
real.
starts with the mental process,
Right,
but
right.
it very soon becomes self-reflection, then it becomes meditation and contemplation,
Right.
and then that leads to realization.
Well, I'm really appreciative of the time you have spent with us. There's much to learn. And there are many more questions, which I hope we will come together again. But it kind of gives us a preparatory or an initiation into just the understanding of what a vast and beautiful subject Sanatan Dharma is. And your book, I believe, is a very important book, perhaps one of the most important books of this year, because it allows us to start probing.
Yes.
And it doesn't have all the answers, which it shouldn't. The very fact that we accept that the book should not give an answer, we should find the answer. We are the answer, and we will discover the answer. Well, thank you, Partho ji, for coming to our studio. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.